Hi, guys. On this chat, we get to speak with an exponent of two disciplines that I can't wait to hear or find out about, rather. He's been teaching and training both for over 20 years and considers them mainstays for life. As a black belt of Chinese Karaho Kempo, he has learned discipline indicative of the martial arts. And it is this same discipline that I'm sure he carries over into his particular brand of Taiko, the art of Japanese drumming. Please welcome Sensei Roy Anderson. How are you doing today, sir?
How are you, my friend? Thank you for having me. This is a pleasure and an honor just to be interviewed about my discipline. So thank you again for giving me this chance to just come in and give you a little bit of my background.
Honestly, Sensei Roy, the honor is truly mine. Right? I get to hear about what Taiko truly is. Okay, and also I've heard about Ronin Taiko for a very long time. We have a mutual friend, and he has nothing but great things to say about you. And I've heard some of his performances with you, and they're nothing but stellar. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about it and get in depth with it. Without further ado, I know it's late at night and we have things that we need to do. We both have families that we need to get back to. So let's go ahead. First question: how did you start the martial art?
Well, I like to think that I started in my mom's womb, punching and kicking, trying to get out, just trying to see and start my life. So I think from day one, I was always that physical, energetic spirit. And I'm now 54 years old, and it hasn't changed much since. So I've always liked the physicality of life, not only the spirit, but the practical form itself. So I just from day one I was very physical. When I when I first started martial arts, I was in probably I was 15 years old, starting high school, 15, 16 years old. And one day there was a substitute teacher that came in, and he looked a little different. The way he carried himself, he was just teaching a class, but there was something different about that man. And when he told us about himself, I realized he was a martial artist. He was actually teaching karate or Kempo karate. And I asked him a ton of questions, and then I went to his dojo. I was always into sports, played baseball, football. I actually played college baseball. So I actually went to school like a semi-pro baseball player. So I loved baseball and sports. So I was very active. But when I met this sensei and went to his dojo, to watch discipline, to watch fighting styles. And this gym I'm originally from Massachusetts, so this is a square building, where they're punching walls and they're punching heavy bags for training. It was very physical, so aside from a military boot camp, this was like, oh, this is not a sport anymore. This is a little bit more disciplined in the fact that you're watching katas, watching sparring, watching people learn techniques, and I was just in awe of the movement. I've always loved physical movement. So just
If you don't mind me,
yeah, go ahead.
if you don't mind me asking, Sensei
Sure.
Roy, so okay, not to I know you dated yourself, but I don't want to date you even further, right? But what would you say around that time period is? Like you say around the 80s?
So yes, so we're
Okay,
yeah.
so it's that rough, hardcore kind of style that was indicative of the 80s, really.
Before dojos had to have insurance, if that makes sense. So you could do a lot, and parents weren't watching. The difference is parents would give the kids discipline, and they allowed senseis to give that discipline, knowing what the reason for it is. So then you knew that the sensei cared about you, and the reason why he was teaching was that you would know. Like a mother will sometimes spank a kid before he goes out into the street because he knows the future of that. It's not, they know that I can't tell you, you don't understand language with, but little pat on the butt, don't do that, they understand, you know. So it was, sometimes a sensei would control you. I'm a 13-year-old, 15-year-old kid with tons of energy, and sometimes not knowing that I'm being disrespectful just because I want to play or laugh, or a sensei would give you that, you know, training early on, and the parents would also give that control to the sensei for that time. So I came from my fondest memories in martial arts weren't necessarily in dojos. They were actually in basements where we could do full fighting and do whatever we wanted to, you know, still controlled. We still had to, you know, go to work the next day or go to school the next day, being so young, but you could do a lot more. So I came from a little bit more of a hard knock life. Now we understand, you know, how to positively give feedback, or there's different styles that work now, but we didn't have YouTubes or internet to learn how we should, you know, go through each training session, you know. Because I'm jumping the gun, I travel a lot, which we'll find out later. So I had to take different martial arts, and each sensei or each sifu, or they train differently. So some trained harder, some were more about tactical, some were more about weapons. So they're all different. And I got to learn, even with Taiko, different senseis as well, that there's all different styles. My first, you know, I was mostly into sports first. And then later, if I look back at me being 17, my idea of martial arts and Taiko has changed. It changes every 5 years. It's in a constant, you know, change. As I grow, so does the art form. And I might have not, it's almost, the Miyagi style is a lot of the times I had no idea why my sensei was telling me something, because I couldn't understand it. A 17-year-old cannot understand something a 30 and a 50 and a 70-year-old might. So that was a main thing for me, is to realize that I always had to grow, and I had to hope that my sensei had my best interest in mind. So his training, though harsh, also protected me when a real situation came in. So one of my black belt, one of the early lessons that I learned from my sensei, and this was probably my first belt technique. We already did kata form, and we did our light sparring, and we did a lot of the techniques. But before the belt ceremony, my sensei walked up to each one of us. I think there were 7 of us at that time, male and female. And he went and he walked down, asked the first person in line, if I was to throw a punch at your face right now, could you block it? And the first guy goes, yeah, I think boom, right in the face. The guy, sensei, punches him right in the nose. Goes to the next, which is a female. Asks the same question. Sensei, if I was to throw a punch at you, could you block it? She says, yes. Boom, right in the nose. Goes to me. A little different. If I was to throw a punch at your face, could you block it? Of course not, sensei. The lesson being, of course, I'm a sensei. This is why you're coming to me, is to teach you. And I know sometimes you want to feel like you're giving the right answer. The best thing, tell the truth. Do you really think you could beat me? Do you really think you could stop No. Start with the truth. The minute we establish those rules, then we can learn from each other. But a lot of the time we're in such a world that this bravo ego walks in the door first, and we can't accept that we know nothing. And I don't know how many books or philosophies or styles of martial arts, if you don't understand the empty cup, Bruce Lee empty cup philosophy, then why are you taking it? Why are you joining this martial arts? Why are you playing Taiko? And what you'll find out from me, they're both very similar. and that's basically what my first lesson in karate was. And so that was very helpful down the road and in my own teaching. Tell the truth, realize what your weaknesses are, and then we can build them to be strengths. We don't ever work on our strengths. We only work on weaknesses. When the weaknesses become strength, we find another weakness. That's it. You have to be able to fail, but you also have to be able to learn from that. And a lot of people have the difficulty because they don't want to make mistakes. We're in a world that if you make a mistake, like here, this is uncomfortable for me. I would much rather be in the ring fighting or be performing Taiko in front of thousands of people. Tend to talk about myself and my life, and I put that on the line, and I wait for, is he Kempo? Where did he come from? And somebody will challenge my Taiko knowledge. It's just because I might not know yet. So there's a learning that happens, but I need this in my life to be able to discuss my path so other people can learn. I don't talk a lot about my backgrounds. People have to pry it from me. It's almost like it's mine. Do you really want to hear it? If you really want to hear it, you got to pull it from me. So, but I'm glad Sifu, Joe Keat was one of the ones that says, you got to talk to Sensei Roy about, coming in.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you did, because this is just training for me as well. So
I'm glad you are talking to me, because it's great to hear your story, because it's a very interesting story, right? And, to comment on what you had said about that being your first lesson, that is a great first lesson to have. And to be honest, I think you lucked out on it, because not everybody gets to have a first lesson like that, right? And to be honest, that is a lesson that can only be learned through humility. Right? So if you're humble, can you really truly get what you learned from that? Yeah. Right? So that's absolutely awesome, Sensei Roy. But I want to take it back a little bit back into your martial arts, and then we're going to take it straight into Taiko, right? Your first sensei you had said was Kempo. Is that the same style? Is that the Karaho Kempo?
No, first it was American Kempo. So first it was the Mitosi, James Mitosi, one of the founders of Kempo. And then you had Professor Kwai-Sun Chow. And then you had Ed Parker. And then Nick Serio. So these are all branches or levels. So my first was more of the Mitosi, Ed Parker and Nick Serio style of American karate or American Kempo or Kempo Jiu-Jitsu. So many different names with it. And then after I got my black belt with that, they had brought in Sam Kahoha. And Sam Kahoha is from the Karaho Kempo system. So I started learning the Karaho from there. And it had a whole different dynamics to it, different discipline. So I was actually working with both styles of Kempo at the same time, getting and kind of I was there every day practicing both arts. They all had their different combinations, different skill. And I love to kick. So believe it or not, I'm 6'2", but I have very good flexibility. So if you've ever seen some of the shows, I do split kicks, and I always just loved, Van Damme style, put my feet on the two chairs. But I always loved kicking, and being 6'2", it was great because I could keep a distance always with people. So having that, 3-foot kick, I love kicks, side kicks. This will again tell me how old I am. I would watch the VHS, Panther Productions, Century Martial Arts, VHS. A VHS is a big tape. I have to explain things. But Superfoot Wallace was one of my favorites, and he actually lives down the street, and I've met him. And I would watch every day, come home from school, put on the Flintstones, and do my kicks, or Spider-Man, and I would do my kicks, the hook side, roundhouse combination, and I would do that over and over again. I just loved, that type of fighting style. I would have loved Taekwondo at one point because I know they were known for kicks, but being in Massachusetts, most were Kempo schools, so you're always taking schooling from where you live. When I lived in Ohio, they didn't have Kempo. They had a different style, so I had to adapt. And then when I went to Florida, I did a little capoeira, more kicks, but a different style. I moved a lot, so I had to, go with the flow and learn different techniques, which I think is why I love to learn different cultures, different styles. I see them all as strengths. It's just how you interpret them sometimes. There's certain styles for certain for certain effects. Or I would have loved MMA if that was available at 14, because I love to wrestle, I love to kick and punch and boxing. So it had everything, where you weren't, not typecast, but there was only, systems have rules, and that's sometimes a problem because that's not war-based. War means there's no rules, it is what it is. So sometimes when there's too many rules, then the effectiveness of the art kind of changes, if that makes sense. But I love the different styles, so I was happy. I did the Kempo, both styles were probably from 15 to 21, so 6 to 7 years of that. And then I played baseball, went to school in Ohio, got rid of most of my Boston accent. And then I went to college in Ohio, where I had to take a different martial arts. And then that was only a couple years. And then I moved to Florida, where I did the capoeira. So every 5 years, I probably had to study a new art. I did a lot of boxing and a lot of kickboxing. I actually taught kickboxing, at a YMCA when I was in Daytona Beach in Florida. And I always tried to get groups of people together to practice martial arts when I could,
All right. That's awesome. Awesome. So I'm sure when you came down here to Florida, you must have felt, and you went into capoeira. You must have do it, mended. It must have mixed to you like a fish in water, with those kicks, right?
Oh yeah, and I love just everything, just the movement, and that's the first time that I'm really also seeing music associated with the martial arts. So you've got the berimbau, which it's basically an instrument that they pluck. When you hear capoeira, there's a certain music that goes with it, and it had drumming, it had the beat, and it's the timing and the rhythm of everything. So that's to me, as far as martial arts, rhythm, timing, coordination are so important. And a lot of schools don't teach, they teach kata, but they're not teaching coordination. And sometimes those are two different things. So to have rhythm and music and culture as part of a martial art, I think that I was in awe watching that and the abilities of them. And then to realize that it could be clean fighting that looks pretty, or it could be very dirty where they're kicking your sand in your face, or they're making you look at the sun because they know that to put their back to the sun, so you're blinded. So you've learned how to cheat and be dirty, but it's also beautiful to watch. Same thing with Shaolin Kung Fu. It's beautiful to watch, and then you realize why they're deflecting or why they're trying to look over here, like their tricks, and so you start to study the body and the different disciplines for the art of it. So I always see them truly as martial arts. Aikido it's as much as a performance art as it is a martial art. It can be both. Kung Fu, Shaolin, those are beautiful. Tai Chi, those are beautiful to watch, and they are brutal if you know what they're doing. So we would do, like, when you see katas, a lot of people just do kata, not show that it's an actual strike, or they're not showing that they're actually fighting people. A lot of people just think they're just arranged movements and not ever seeing four people attack. They're not using the imagination of why you're practicing something so much, So all those different types of things made me who I am as far as Taiko as well. To me, it's a visual art as much it is a martial art if it's practiced in a certain way.
As martial artists, it is very important for us to understand the martial arts aspect in our movements, because if we don't, we cannot have intention, right, behind our movements. If there is no intention behind our movements, well, our movements are empty, and what's the point of doing empty movement, right? I say this all the time to people about Tai Chi, right? It's, you have to have intention, right? If not, it'll just be dance, right? But you know what? Saying it like that, I'm putting dance down as a discipline, because even dancers know what they're representing. So their movement isn't empty.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just being able to have put intention behind your movement. And what you said is so very true. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to stick a pin right there. I'm going to go right back, right? Because you got a wealth of knowledge, Sensei Roy, and I am so happy that you have opened up a little bit to give me a little peek of the knowledge that you do have, right? So I'm just going to go back a little bit, right? Go back into your Kempo. Your particular style of Kempo that you're talking about, you got a black belt in American Kempo, but then you also got a black belt in Chinese Kempo, right? Now, I had spoken with Sifu Bart Vale. He actually runs a Kempo school here in Lauderhill, Florida, right? And he calls it Chinese Kempo, but it's actually Ed Parker's Kempo. And come to find out that through him, that Ed Parker didn't even really call it American Kempo. It was one of Ed Parker's students who suggested that it be called American Kempo, right? So that's why he calls it Chinese Kempo. Right. So when he said Chinese Kempo, and I did my research, and I was doing the intro on him, I said Chinese Karaho Kempo, and he abruptly stopped me, and he's like, no, this is not Karaho Kempo. I'm like, okay. So now when you told me that you're a black belt in Karaho Kempo, my ears picked up. I have to ask, what is Chinese Karaho Kempo?
So the difference would be when Professor Chow had students, there's many students. And when there's many students, there's many opinions on what the sensei taught. And each one wants to have their own school. I mean, it's as simple as that. So Karaho Kempo, would have forms like William Kwai-san Chow. Kwai-san is one of the forms of that you learn. That's one of my first forms, and I would say it's closer to what a kung fu form would be compared to what a normal karate, the basic block type of Shotokan, very hard style. So to me, the way the katas were definitely different, in the movements. And remember, I'm 17 when I'm learning it, so I don't know truly what separated the two schools, from being just Kempo. I think it's because Mitosi is the one that kind of was the head of Kempo at the time, and he moved from Hawaii to Japan to learn Japanese culture, and Japanese martial arts, and then he moved back to Hawaii. So a lot of this comes from Hawaii, and then So Karaho would be more Hawaiian based, and then Ed Parker moving to the United States would be American based. So that just the culture would probably change a lot of the forms with it. Again, I'm not a historian, so I don't want somebody writing say, "What'd you say about Karaho?" But just as a student, that's what we learned. The American Kempo was really focused on the five animals. So the snake, the crane, the tiger, and so forth. And then I never really learned about that when I did the Karaho. So it just the meanings were different. But I was very young minded to just want to learn fighting and forms, and my mind wasn't, even though I knew kind of the lineage, I just wanted to punch things. I just wanted to do, different mind. Now I want to know why he created the form, why the style was created, and I want to know more of the history about it. But it was just, and because I was in a school that was learning both at the same time, I was just taking in both knowledge, which might, sometimes that's a hindrance because, you're trying to learn jazz and punk rock at the same time as far as music. It might be great to have the balance of two, but there's different rules. So learning them at the same time, maybe my mind's not as clear about which one was more American style, or not American style, but Shaolin, because what is it, Chuan Fa? Is that's basically, Kempo. Kempo is basically fist law or fist method. But even just skipping, even Kempo itself, it's Kenpo, Kenpo. Ken, Japanese for fist or sword, and then Po for law. So when the N of Ken is followed by a P, it becomes Kempo. So that's just a language thing. So, which is, again, a lot of the time it went from Chinese to Japanese thought. So already probably why I love Japanese and Chinese culture is from day one, I was learning Japanese words, Chinese meanings. The kanji was different for each thing. So I'm getting a lot of different ideas, and that's kind of what ends up happening a lot of times in martial arts, especially now, is they're all fused and we don't know the original style. Because I was learning boxing, I was learning jiu-jitsu, I was learning a little bit of Shotokan being Japanese. Then I'm learning, Kung Fu Shaolin, which is Chinese, and they all are different, but they're part of one art. Art. So I don't know if I have the answer of the true differences, because I was doing both of them at the same time. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. But but you did answer the question, and to me that's a good answer. Answered it perfectly, right? So now, from what you had said, I noticed there's something, right? So you have your evolution itself in Kempo, right? So you go from American Kempo, then you went into Karaho Kempo. Now, moving from the martial arts, right? I noticed that you had also said, actually staying in the martial arts. After going from Kempo, you had gone through to Capoeira. You came down here.
I was doing boxing and kickboxing for very well, but yeah.
Right. So boxing, kickboxing, right? And then when you moved down here to Florida, you got into Capoeira. Mm-hmm. But what I'm noticing is martial arts, and then a transition to martial arts with music, like you had said before. Mm-hmm. And then now, my question is, how did you get into Taiko?
Yeah. So I think the seed was already set, because if I was to listen to music, I would always listen to drums. So the drum beats were always, if I listen to AC/DC, Metallica, or even anything that, Imagine Dragons, anything current, I'm listening to the drumming first and then the melody second. where some people listen to the piano, the guitar, they listen to the melody or the music. I'm listening to that beat. So that was from day one. To me, rhythm and beat, they say with Taiko, it's almost like your heartbeat. You're hitting the drums, and it's a representation of a heartbeat. When you are born, I'm back in that, mother's womb. I'm hearing boom, 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 really loud. You're in, for 9 months, you're listening to this boom, boom, this energy, this heartbeat, both shared heartbeats. It's the fun, I can't imagine how loud inside hearing that heartbeat is happening. So everybody is born listening to that heartbeat. You're going to listen to that heartbeat for the rest of your life, So, it also controls tempo. It controls movement. If you move too fast, it's almost a warning sign. If you, and if you don't pay attention to it, you'll drop dead. So it's very important to listen to your heart. So for me, the first time that I saw Taiko, I think it might have been on TV on a sumo wrestling match where they had the Taiko drum, because they'd use it for a time signature, dum dum dum, quiet please, or sit down, we're ready to begin, or they're letting people know what match is coming up, or they'd play a rhythm for entertainment, but it was more for a time signature. So I had seen that, and I saw some video of this Budo master that was hitting it, just almost like trying to knock it down, but a big drum, and he was hitting it and doing his stance, and hitting it and doing his stance. So those things I probably saw early on, but it wasn't until I moved to Florida. And I moved to Florida in the year 2000, and I went to the Japanese museum, Murakami Museum, in Delray, and they were having a Hatsume festival. They have a festival every year where they'll bring in music and different groups, and they had a Taiko performance there. That's the first time I saw it live. And Fushu Daiko was the Taiko group, and they're a local group as well. They're from Florida Taiko. Fushu Daiko means Florida Taiko. I saw their performance, and to me, again, I saw drumming, I saw spirit. They were kiaiing, they were hitting the drums in unison. Each person's arm was doing exactly the same thing, so it was almost like a kata with music. I saw them, and then I found out that they teach lessons. So there was a school. School, of course, is, I had two choices. I had just moved to Florida. I was either going to take Aikido, because I have to take something. So I had to, what's local? What am I going to do? I wanted to take Aikido because of the discipline art form, not necessarily for the fighting art, but it was more about the meditation. It was more about the ceremony. So I have, at that point, I had done a lot of fighting, a lot of punching, a lot of kickboxing, and I wanted something else to focus on. And I'm also a massage therapist. I also do shiatsu. I also am a personal trainer, so I'm into health and fitness. So it was just another way of learning how to breathe, learning how to roll, learning how to, do this other art form. But I saw Taiko. So I said, I have $60 a month. Is it going to go to Aikido, which I probably could do at any time? So I can find Aikido everywhere. I'm not going to find Taiko or whatever this is anywhere else. So I decided to go there, and there was a warehouse. Of course, it's a warehouse because these drums are loud. So it has to, every single Taiko dojo is usually in a warehouse where you have boaters or mechanics, loud noises. or it's at the basement. Like in New York, they're all in churches underneath the ground in basement because it's so loud. So most of the dojos are far, you would not know they even exist because they have to be it's 10 people drumming. If you're the neighbor, it's fun for a day, but every day hearing drumming. So that's why I decided to take Taiko. This was something that was unique. I was interested in it, and it was something that I've really never got to see, a group of people playing simultaneously, doing everything in spirit. So it affected me kind of like the capoeira did with the music and the dancing and the movement. So I started to go, and then I performed and played with them for about 5 years. In that time, I was just learning the art. This is also before, again, YouTube's. So you couldn't look up, what is Taiko? What am I, what are its roots? So I didn't have any information. So when I started, there was only a couple people in the class. It was a big, warehouse, no AC. The dock doors are open. And then we're just basically playing rhythms, and I started learning that way. I really enjoyed the art, and I kept wanting more. I'm the type that when I start something, I get enveloped in it. I have to know more. What's it about? Where'd it come from? So I really kept trying to get more information, because it looked like a martial art. It looked like a dance. It looked like a meditation. It was all of these things, and I needed more history of it. So I eventually, with a friend and the co-founder of Ronin 88s, we went to Japan and went to the source. And when we went there, a lot of the answers of this art started to open up, because we were playing rhythms that we just heard of, and we didn't know they had real meaning. With Taiko itself just means drum in Japanese, but it's also the art form. So if you went to Japan, show me Taiko. That could be anything. Here, it's the art form itself. So we play Taiko. The drum itself is a Taiko. So Ronin Taiko, that's where that name comes. Fushu Daiko with a D, same thing. Daiko and Taiko, it just sounds better. Kind of like Kenpo and Kampo. It's the same Roman. It's Roman. It goes back to, if you were to see a Japanese Chinese kanji, how would you say that in English? So that's how you would say it. So Taiko just is drum. Wa Daiko, wa, old term for China, it is wa Daiko. That means you're playing Japanese drum. So that's usually when you play wa Daiko, all the members are Japanese. So Taiko itself, Taiko, just the drum or just the group. And so after playing, with the local group, and I believe they're having their 35th anniversary. So they've been around longer than a lot of the groups. Yeah, and this year you can catch them on different concerts. I've been playing for 25 years. I played 5 with them, and then I started Ronin. Ronin Taiko is now 20 years. And if a week before I went into that Taiko, I wouldn't have a Taiko class. I would have no idea this would be the next 25 years of my life. So it's like, if you've never done karate, you've never done kung fu, and all of a sudden this is the first exposure to seeing something, and now you're doing, like you had no idea the first time, whatever that time was, that you were going to step into the dojo or the school, that this is what you'd be doing. And that's what it was. I had no idea in Boston or Massachusetts, in Ohio, that this even existed. And now I have it, and I need more. And with Taiko, for me, there was never an ending. I never saw me getting old from it. I can be 80 years old, 90 years old, and it's always going to be good for my health. You do Aikido, a lot of them have hip problems from rolling. So they're more injured, not from fighting somebody, from the art itself. So some of these, systems, you're not going to see a boxer live to be 60, 70, 80 years old. So there's a timeline. Tai Chi, the movement you can do as a martial art, but you can also do it for health So I saw Taiko is a way to do something physical that I still can feel like a warrior, but I can also do forever. And I can also entertain people and give them that feeling that I'd feel. So I think that's why it stuck with me, is I got to do more. Taiko, let's see where this goes, you know.
It's like it's like a quest for more. You just want more. You just eat it up like candy.
Yeah.
Understand that? I truly understand it. I'm the same way with Tai Chi and Pak Mei Kung Fu. I'm the same way, man. I understand. I understand.
And being here, there was not an opportunity to go to another Taiko school. There was only 3 in Florida, the state of Florida, Taiko schools. So it's not like I can just, I want to study from another sensei. There weren't sensei. So part of Ronin is a masterless samurai. That's where, and I will go a little bit into that. It's the idea that I'm always looking for teachers. I don't have a teacher. I need to find teachers to teach me this art. And now after 25 years, I'm the one that has to give information to other people that are doing. I did not have a lot. I had to travel to Japan or different long trips because there's no internet, no YouTube, to find out, more about, the style and how long it's been around. I mean, I didn't know this is a 2,000-year-old art, but only a 60-year-old art is how it's played now, and we'll talk a little bit about that.
All right. So, in terms of both, right, your Kempo martial arts as well as with your Joni, because as I said in the intro, the discipline that you have learned through the martial arts, I'm sure it carried over into Taiko, and as I'm hearing, yes, it surely did. Right, because of the similarities that you saw in Taiko, right? The meanings and everything that you uncovered as you looked more into the discipline itself, right? So Kung Fu, right, usually is that term that means a skill acquired over time. So we'll just say Kung Fu is skill, right? In your honest opinion, Sensei Roy, what do you believe is the hardest part of developing that skill for either Taiko or Kempo?
And what you'll find is the answer is going to be similar. So and I teach all different types. And I've taught martial arts. I've taught kickboxing and boxing, and I've taught Taiko. And it's individual based. What your difficulty is not going to be the same as mine. So so with Taiko, some people don't have rhythm, which means and this is the basic question, if I played any music, would you be able to clap along? That basic. So you don't need to know music. You don't have to study, music history. You just have to be able to clap to music. Do you know if you're on rhythm? Because if you think you're off rhythm, you have to know that you're off rhythm. So that means you know what rhythm is. It's just they don't have the physical and mental ability at that moment to clap to music. They do because their heartbeat is always sustains a certain beat. So we understand what a certain rhythm is. So for that person, it's learning just how to clap to music and just how to embrace music. Culturally, certain cultures, my wife's Boricuan, she's Puerto Rican, she dances. From the womb, she's out dancing. From the womb, I was martial art. As soon as the music starts, she cannot stop. It's just part of her culture. So they have a party, all the chairs and couches move and they dance. So that's part of their upbringing. Everybody. So I'm Scandinavian. There wasn't drumming to that. You don't see a lot of Scandinavians drumming. They're not known. Dancing. They're not known for that. But everybody can learn through different cultures. So if you're able to, embrace the culture and know why the dancing's happening or the drumming's happening, then you start to feel it. Most people are usually in different sections, and they don't mix with others. The key to martial arts and drumming is to mix and learn from it. One of the major things I learned when I went to Japan to learn Taiko is there was no questions, there was no talking. The sensei would show how to play a certain move, and then your job was to watch. If you got it, you got it. If you didn't, you'll get it next time.